Have you ever wondered what an ordinary weekday looks like in the Philippines? Not the beaches, not the islands, not the places you usually see in travel videos. I'm talking about the everyday life of millions of ordinary Filipinos. This morning, I didn't leave home with the intention of making this documentary. I simply wanted to go out and film another walking video around Metro Manila. It was raining when I stepped outside. I checked my camera, made sure my batteries were full, put on my backpack, and started walking. At first, I thought this video would be about the rain. I thought I'd capture people walking with umbrellas, cars splashing through puddles, and maybe a few nice shots of the city in bad weather. But as the day went on, I realized I wasn't really filming the rain. I was filming something much bigger. By the time I got home that evening, one question kept repeating in my head. Why does it seem like so many ordinary Filipinos struggle to have hobbies? Not because they don't want one, but because life gets in the way. This isn't a story about everyone. Many Filipinos have hobbies they genuinely enjoy. Some play basketball after work. Others ride bikes on weekends. Some love photography, music, gaming, running, painting, or gardening. But for millions of workers, finding the time and energy for those things can be incredibly difficult. So today, let's spend an entire day together, not as tourists, not as visitors, but as quiet observers of everyday life. It wasn't even 7 in the morning yet. The rain had already made everything feel colder than usual. People stood quietly along the roadside. Some held umbrellas, some wore rain jackets, others simply accepted that they were going to get wet. Nobody looked excited to be standing there, but nobody complained either. Everyone had somewhere to be. I stopped for a moment and watched. A bus appeared in the distance. Almost everyone standing beside me took a small step forward. You could almost feel the hope. Maybe this one still had space. The bus slowed. The doors opened. A few passengers got off. Several people squeezed themselves inside. Then the driver closed the doors again. The bus pulled away. There were still plenty of people left behind. Nobody said anything. They simply looked down the road and waited for the next one. I remember thinking, imagine starting every single morning like this. Not once, not twice, but almost every weekday. And then I realized, for many people, this isn't the hardest part of the day. It's just the beginning. As I continued walking, I noticed something interesting. Everyone was moving with purpose. Nobody was walking slowly just to enjoy the weather. Nobody was stopping to admire the rain. Most people weren't looking at the buildings around them. They were looking at the time, checking their phones, watching approaching buses, looking for jeepneys, trying to figure out the fastest way to work. When you live in a city where traffic is unpredictable, every minute matters. Being 5 minutes late can mean missing attendance. Missing attendance can mean salary deductions. For many workers, being late isn't just inconvenient, it costs money. That changes the way you see mornings. One jeepney finally arrived. Even before it came to a complete stop, people were already preparing to get in. Some managed to find a seat, others stood inside, shoulder to shoulder. The driver looked back for a second, then another passenger climbed aboard anyway. From where I was standing, I couldn't help but smile. If you've never experienced riding a jeepney during rush hour, it probably looks chaotic, but somehow people make it work. They adjust, they move a little closer together. Someone shifts their bag, another passenger leans forward. Space somehow appears where it didn't exist a moment ago. It's one of those small things you only understand after seeing it yourself. As I kept filming, the rain became heavier. The sound of raindrops hitting umbrellas almost drowned out the traffic. Some people gave up trying to stay dry. Others laughed as they ran across the street. A delivery rider carefully covered his packages with plastic. Street vendors quickly adjusted the tarps above their stalls. Within minutes, the city had adapted. That's something I've always admired about Filipinos. Life here is unpredictable. Sometimes it's the weather, sometimes it's traffic, sometimes it's both. But somehow, people continue moving. Not because it's easy, because they have no other choice. After spending nearly an hour watching commuters, I asked myself a simple question. how much energy does all of this take? Think about it. Some people wake up before sunrise, walk to the main road, wait for transportation, stand in line, ride in a crowded vehicle, sit through traffic, then finally arrive at work. And all of that happens before they've even started their actual job. I don't think many people realize how exhausting that can be, especially when it happens every single day. As I continued walking through Manila, I realized something else. The city itself never really stops. While one group of people was trying to get to work, another group had already started working hours earlier. Street sweepers were cleaning the sidewalks, food vendors were setting up their stalls, small convenience stores were opening their doors, security guards were beginning their shifts, construction workers were unloading equipment. The city was waking up, one job at a time. Every person I passed had a different story, different responsibilities, different dreams, but almost everyone shared one thing. They were trying to make it through another ordinary day. People often say, you should find a hobby. And honestly, I agree. Having something you enjoy outside of work is important, whether it's playing sports, learning guitar, photography, reading books, cooking, or simply taking a walk in the park. Hobbies give us something to look forward to. They help us relax. They remind us that life isn't only about work. But as I watched thousands of commuters that morning, another question came to mind. When exactly are they supposed to do that? Because the day had barely begun, and many people already looked tired. And I couldn't stop thinking, maybe the biggest problem isn't that people don't want hobbies. Maybe it's that they're already spending so much of themselves before 9 o'clock in the morning. And my day was only just getting started. After spending some time at the bus stop, I continued my walk toward Quiapo. By the time I arrived, the rain was already gone. Instead of gray skies, I was welcomed by bright sunshine and intense heat. That's one thing about the Philippines. You can leave home in heavy rain and find yourself sweating under the afternoon sun just a few hours later. The weather changes quickly, but life doesn't stop. People simply adjust and keep moving. As I entered Quiapo, the streets became much busier. Sidewalks were filled with people. Vendors were already calling customers. Small shops had opened for the day. Some people were buying clothes. Others were looking for phone accessories, tools, or household items. If you've ever been to Quiapo, you know there's always something happening. It may look crowded at first, but after walking around for a while, you begin to understand the rhythm of the place. Everyone seems to have a destination. Everyone has something they need to do. Around lunchtime, I started noticing where people were eating. Some stopped at street food stalls. Others went to small karinderias for a quick meal before going back to work. These places aren't just affordable, they're also fast. When your lunch break is limited, every minute counts. As I continued filming, I kept asking myself the same question. If your day begins before sunrise, if you spend hours commuting, work for most of the day, then spend another few hours getting home, how much time is actually left for yourself? People often say that everyone should have a hobby, and I agree. Having something you enjoy outside of work is important. But maybe the bigger question is, when do ordinary workers actually have the time? As I walked through Quiapo, I wasn't just filming a busy street. I was watching thousands of people trying to make the most of another ordinary day. And my journey was only halfway finished. After walking through the busy streets of Quiapo, I decided to head somewhere a little quieter. I ended up at Pasig River Esplanade. The atmosphere here felt completely different. The traffic was still there. The city was still busy, but somehow it didn't feel as overwhelming. People were taking their time. Some were sitting by the river. Families were walking together. Friends were chatting while enjoying the view. Others were simply watching the boats and the water flow by. For a moment, it felt like everyone had forgotten about work. And maybe that's exactly why places like this are important. In a city where life moves so quickly, people need somewhere they can slow down. You don't have to spend money to enjoy a place like this. Sometimes, just taking a walk is enough. As I continued filming, I noticed children running around without a care in the world. Parents were smiling. Couples were taking photos together. Street food vendors were serving snacks. It reminded me that people aren't always looking for something expensive. Most of us are simply looking for a little time. Time to rest. Time to laugh. Time to be with the people we care about. Maybe that's what a hobby really gives us. Not just entertainment, but a break from our routine. A chance to feel like ourselves again. The truth is, I don't think most ordinary workers are choosing work over hobbies. I think they're choosing responsibility. They have bills to pay, families to support, children to raise. And after everything they've already given during the day, there isn't always much left. Not because they don't want to enjoy life, but because they're simply tired. As the afternoon went on, the sun was still shining. It was hard to believe that just a few hours earlier, I had started my day in the rain. The city had changed once again, but the people kept moving. Some were heading home. Others were just beginning the next part of their day. So I packed my camera and started walking again. Because in Metro Manila, the busiest part of the day was still ahead of me. By the time I finished filming at Pasig River Esplanade, it was almost 5 in the afternoon. For many people, this is the end of the workday. But if you've ever lived or worked in Metro Manila, you know the day isn't really over yet. I made my way to a nearby bus stop. Within a few minutes, more and more people started arriving. Office workers, students, construction workers, employees carrying backpacks and lunch bags. Everyone was waiting for the same thing, a ride home. The first bus arrived. It was already full. It slowed down for a moment, then continued on. Another one came. The same story. People waited patiently. Some had been standing there longer than I had. No one complained. No one argued. They simply kept waiting. Watching this reminded me of something. This morning, I stood at another bus stop, different location, same situation. The day had gone by. People had worked for hours. Some had probably skipped breaks. Some had been standing all day. Others had been dealing with customers, deadlines, or traffic. And now, before they could finally rest, they still had to find a way home. It made me realize something. When we talk about work, we usually think about the 8 hours inside the office. But for many Filipinos, work begins long before they clock in, and it doesn't truly end until they arrive back home. The commute is part of the job. It takes time, it takes patience, and by the end of it, it also takes energy. As I finally found the bus and looked out the window, the city looked different. The afternoon sun was gone. Street lights began to turn on. Stores lit up one by one. The roads were still busy, but the city somehow felt quieter. People looked tired. I imagine many of them were already thinking about dinner or finally taking off their shoes after a long day. When I eventually got home, it was already evening. I stopped by a small karinderia and bought something to eat. Honestly, I was tired. Not because I had been working all day. I had been walking, filming, observing, and even that was enough to wear me out. Then I thought about everyone I had seen since that morning. The commuter standing in the rain, the vendors in Quiapo, the workers eating lunch as quickly as they could. the families enjoying a few quiet moments by the river, the people still waiting for a bus long after work had ended. Suddenly, the question I started with had a different answer. Maybe the problem isn't that people don't want hobbies. Maybe many ordinary workers simply don't have enough time, energy, or opportunity to enjoy one. After commuting, working, commuting again, taking care of family, and preparing for tomorrow, there isn't much of the day left. Still, even in the middle of all that, I saw people smiling. I saw friends sharing a meal, parents playing with their children, couples laughing together. Small moments that reminded me something important. People will always find ways to enjoy life, even if those moments are short. Maybe that's the real hobby for many Filipinos, making the most of whatever free time they have. I hope that one day more people will have shorter commutes, more time with their families, more weekends to rest, and more opportunities to discover something they truly enjoy. Because everyone deserves a little time that's just for themselves. Thank you for spending the day with me. If this video gave you a different perspective on everyday life in the Philippines, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. I'm Alex, and I'll see you in the next walk.